Alright guys, so we're gonna try to simplify radicals today, okay? And we're gonna be looking for patterns. Anytime we can find patterns in math, we can get done quicker. If you're taking GED math or any kind of other math test, lots of times there are times. So let's see if we can recognize some things here. What is a square root? So if I squared 5, we know it's 25. Okay? Well, what if I did ask you the square root of 25? Well, hopefully you will know that's 5. Okay, now let me stop and say the square root here, if there's no number right in here, it's always applied that that's a 2. Okay? So the square and the square root are opposites. Okay? And so now, specifically, I want us to take a look at this part right here. Alright, so let's rewrite this. The square root of 25 could be square root of 5 squared. Okay? Now, remember, this is implied in here. And that just equals 5. I want you to see that the square root and the square cancel out each other. Okay? So let's do another one, okay? Let's take the cube root of 8. Okay? It's a 3 in here, so it's cubed this time. Cube root of 8. Well, we know that that is 2. Okay? So, let's look at this now. Instead of writing 2 here, alright, so let's rewrite this. The cube root of 8, we could also is the square root of 2 cubed. Remember, this is implied in here. So you see the relationship? Cube and a square cancel each other out, and that's the same. It's the answer 2, meaning 2 times 2 times 2 will get you the answer 8. Alright, are we seeing a pattern? Are we seeing that the square root and the square are opposites? Alright, so there's one more thing I want to talk about here. I want you to notice that 5 squared, or 5 times 5, is the prime factorization of 25. Same as this. 2 cubed is the same as 2 times 2 times 2 is the prime factorization of 8. And I think that's going to help as we continue. Alright, the next step. Most of us know what the square root of 16 is, right? It's 4, okay? But let's look at this now. Let's try to break it up a little bit, okay? Square root of 16 would be 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, right? Okay. Another, we can also break that down and simplify it even more. We've got 4 2's here, okay? So we could say that is the square root of 2 to the second power times 2 to the second power. Now remember, the index right here is 2. And remember, these can cancel out. We just looked at that, okay? So let's take a look. We can also divide this further. And we could say it's the square root of 2 to the 2 squared times square root of 2 squared. Okay? Now, remember we said they would cancel each other out because this is a known 2 in here. A power and a root cancel each other out. So basically you just got 2 times 2 equals 4. Now that is a lot of work when we knew the answer to 4. But I want you to look, because we're going to need, everything's not going to be as simple as the square root of 16. And we're going to need to have this in our arsenal to know that we can split things and divide things, and let's continue going. Now there's one thing I forgot to do in here. Let's do a factor tree right quick. Okay, let's take 16. We know that's 4 times 4. And we know 4 is 2 times 2 times 2. Okay? So I wanted to make that connection. Okay? Alright, now, what if we had the square root of 54? We know that's not a perfect square, so let's take a look at that now. The square root of 54. Alright, the first thing we need to do is we want to come over here and do our prime factorization. Okay? So what is a multiple of 54? 9 times 6, right? And then we know 9 is 3 times 3. And 6 is 3 times 2. So let's go back over here and do this. Square root of 54 also is the square root of 3 times 3 times 3 times 2. Remember, there's an index of 2 here. So I am looking for 2 of something. And what do we got right here? We got it right here. We've got 2 of something. Right? Okay, so the square root of 3 squared times 3 times 2. You see what I do? I combine those. Okay? Now, let's split them up. Now remember, I am doing the long way. All the work, show your work in the beginning as you learn this and you start pick up on patterns, and you won't have to do it all. But I say at least do 100 problems before you start taking shortcuts. Let's split this in half here. We can go the square root of 3 squared times the square root of 3 times 2. Alright, so we know 3 squared. We can write, we know that these cancel out, remember? The square root and the square cancel out. So we got 3 times, and then 3 times 2 is 6, so we got the square root of 6. Okay? And so we would write 54, square root of 54, as the so we'll write this as 3 is the square root of 6. Alright, so now let's change the index and see what happens. Remember, this is the index. This is a square, and we were talking about cubes, a 3 would be there. Alright, so let's change it up a little bit. We did the square root of 54, but let's just make it a cube root of 54. Okay? So let's take the cube root of 54. Okay? Now we still got our factor tree. That hadn't changed. So let's change this up. The cube root of 3 times 3 times 3 times 2. Now I know if it's a cube root, I am looking for 3 similar items here, which I have it. Do you see it? Three identical numbers. So let's take a look at what that is. It's the cube root of 3 cubed times 2. Okay? Now let's split that apart. Okay? That's the cube root of 3 cubed times the square root of 2. Okay? Now, let's do some multiplication. We know that this can cancel out each other. And we're left with 3. times the cube root of 2. Okay? And so all that is 3 times the same is cube 54. Okay, so after you do about 100 of these problems, you can start to skip steps. Like for instance, you may see something to go from, do you see it? You want to take a look? You may take this step right here, and you may say, oh, I'll go straight to that step. But do 100 problems. I mean, for me, I still work out problems. If I'm taking a test, I'm going to work them all the way through, because that eliminates mistakes. And you may say, but I'm under a time crunch. Listen, you may have to take this test twice. You just need to understand that it may be, you work them all the way through, and then if you run out of time and you fail the test, then maybe you go back and you learn to skip steps. But I would not skip steps on that first test. Alright, I hope this helps. How to simplify radicals. Thanks for watching.